You know what's amazing to me? How the European Union is against the people in Europe.
Absolutely. They are against European citizens, and especially citizens of nation states. Brussels is against the average Italian, buying his, going to the grocery and buying his absolutely outstanding groceries every day. That's it. They are against people who live in small villages, practice self-sustainable agriculture, that kind of thing. It's an absolutely failed artificial construct that is now imploding in slow motion, but it's still going to take a long time for it to totally collapse. There are a lot of discussions about Brexit style exits from the European Union, which is something that could happen, I would say, in droves in the next 4 or 5 years, certainly. But the most important problem from the point of view of everyday life is that this implosion is accompanied by uh, more taxes everywhere, more and more disappearance of public services, more concentration of wealth. For instance, the 1% in Europe, they live unimaginable wealth to the whole global south, in fact. When you drive in, it's amazing. We crossed Chianti and Val d'Orcia, going to Montalcino, which is the holy grail of wine, of course. I go there every time I come to Italy. And my friends were telling me, do you see all these spectacular 5-6 million villas here? They're not owned by Italians anymore. They are owned by Anglo-Americans. They are owned especially by Brits and Americans and people who work in the financial markets, investment funds, hedge funds. And it was fascinating. We were having an amazing lunch in Montalcino, drinking the best Brunello, and I was paying attention to the conversation on the table by our side. Guess what was happening? An American buying a villa from an Italian woman. And I think they clinched the deal by the end of the meal. She was desperate to sell because she was broke. The only thing left for her and her family was the villa. And then, you see this American, he looked shabby. He didn't even look like a New York investment banker. He looked shabby, but he had the cash. So he could buy a villa that he would never understand the meaning of that villa. Probably a villa coming from the 13th or 14th century, with their own winery and all that. But he had the cash to buy it. Horrible, horrible, horrible,
You know
Well, this
what?
is parallel. The whole thing is interconnected
It's
because the
tragic.
European Union is an enormous laundering machine as well.
It's so tragic, Pepe,
It's
when you
tragic.
look at
It's tragic. Yeah.
yeah, because when you talk about C5 and Europe not being part of that, and with the case of Ukraine, they're doubling down on this failure in Ukraine, and you know, I don't know if they're putting all their eggs in one basket, in the US
From
basket.
the beginning. Yeah.
They don't see any alternative for their future. That's the problem. I don't know how much longer they can continue with this sort of concept. What do they
Until
need?
they implode, Nima. They will keep going on until they implode completely. And it will be a parallel implosion of the EU and NATO.
They have created this sort of mindset, the market, that you have to have the competitors to make it a viable market. But when it comes to the policy, the politic, they're totally going the opposite way. It's all ideological. They're thinking, they're pursuing a sort of mindset that there is no alternative to it. I don't know. In my opinion, the greatest partner of Europeans would be Russia. Russia, no one like Russia can be the friend of Europe, but they don't
Mhm.
see it that way. They see the United States being in that position. The United States is not even belong to that region. They're
Mhm.
they're moving toward China. In the new document, it shows how the United States is focused on China and the rise of China. There is no place for for Europeans in the strategy of the United States, and there is no will in European to understand that.
No, because they are following a screenplay that was designed by what we call, it's a very imperfect terminology, the globalist elites. No question. These Atlanticist globalists, in a sense of one world, one government, one machinery of repression, they don't care about individual identities across Europe. They only care about the machine that is going to implement this one world government across the West, in fact, across the whole West. So that's why there was never a plan B. And if we go deeper on a philosophical, metaphysical, ontological, strategic analysis, Russia is the only barrier, serious barrier, against the spread of this globalist scam. In fact, Russia is a cohesive society, conservative in values, praises the family, the traditional family, is not woke at all and will never be. It's Christian Orthodox, which is already an anathema compared to the Roman Catholic Church, believes in religion, is deeply religious. All that goes against the globalist agenda. So they need to destroy Russia to implement the agenda. And now that they see that it's impossible, no wonder they are in total. It's beyond panic now. It's when the Titanic was already down there. There's nowhere to go. There was never a plan B, and they will continue, and they continue to say the same stupidity from the toxic Medusa, which in fact she should be in the Botticelli. If a neo Botticelli would repaint Pallas and the Centaur, she should be the Centaur, and a Minerva would have its pick, ready to squash her. But and of course that undescribable stupidity, the crazy Estonian responsible for the EU's foreign policy. How to qualify that woman? It's impossible. The stupid ometer was blown off the charts by her. And of course, there are people inside Brussels who says, this woman, she's ridiculous. But there's no way to expel her. These people are ultra protected. As even Pfizer-gate von der Leyen cannot be expelled because she's ironclad protected. And it's the revolving door. These people, they finish their mandate and they are reconstituted in another institution with the same kind of power. Stoltenberg, all these people. Well, it's coming back to what we were discussing in the beginning. It's going to take generations to change that. Hopefully not more than one or two, but maybe, will take until the end of the century to change that. And it's up to the populations of individual nation states in Europe. Hungary may be setting an example. Slovakia may be following it. Maybe Austria on and off. But Italy is complicated, Nima, because Italy is a total NATO neo-colony, totally controlled by the Americans and the globalists. So it's going to be very hard. And the fifth columnists in Italy, they are extremely powerful and they will continue to be powerful. From Carlo De Benedetti, who engineered the destruction of Olivetti, to Mario Draghi, who, by the way, has a gigantic villa in Tuscany as well, like all of them do, In fact, in Umbria. The guys in Umbria were telling me about all the rich Italians who Umbria is a sort of mini Tuscany. It's less crowded, less foreigners, wonderful way of life. The food is outstanding. The climate is outstanding. So it's the perfect refuge for these people. And they can buy a villa for a fraction of the cost of a villa in Tuscany. So these people won't go away. The Agnelli family, the Agnelli Elkan family, which owns, among others, La Stampa. And it's the Economist or the Economist as well. They have huge shares in the Economist. So when you read the Economist, you're not reading the city of London exactly. You're reading a bunch of gangsters from northern Italy, centralized by the figure of Agnelli, who was a gangster who in the end was very, very lucky. The real great entrepreneur of northern Italy, it's the story of Olivetti. Adriano Olivetti, especially the son. Camillo Olivetti was the founder of Olivetti in 1908. And Adriano was the guy who projected Olivetti to, being a global humanistic corporation. And it was amazing because I talked to a top engineer, one of the guys who invented the electron that is responsible for the electronic advances of Olivetti in the 70s and 80s. And the person who gave us the guided tour, she was a former top Olivetti executive. And they speak of the company like it's their family still today when they are retired. It's amazing. And when they give you the details of how the architects projected the industrial buildings, how they designed the refectory, which you go to a refectory and you have modern art masterpieces everywhere. How they designed a hospital and a health service department, how they built nurseries. Can you imagine? They built a nursery in the middle of a gigantic park with Japanese pavilions. So the sons of the workers could go to a nursery that was organically integrated into the landscape. What kind of company nowadays does that, on a mass scale? So that's the definition of industrial humanism, which disappeared completely. And of course, pioneered here in Italy.
Pepe, after the meeting, in the United Kingdom between Europeans and Zelensky, the Chancellor of Germany, Merz, said that Germany is going to send 52 billion euros to Ukraine to help Ukraine.
52 billion that they don't have, right, Nima?
And looking at Germany and German economy today, and I'm an engineer, Pepe. I look at the numbers. I see what's going on with the economy of Germany and how important and crucial the Russian energy was for the economy of Germany.
Sure.
I would say the best friend of German people on this planet is Russia, because they have sustained that sort of economy that the German people were enjoying for such a long time. And that is not the case anymore. And they're doubling down in Ukraine. How do you see the change of power from it seems to me that the eastern part of Europe, considering Slovakia and Hungary, they're more, they understand better what's going on with the whole case of Europe and the conflict with Russia. Do you think that the power within Europe is somehow changing from the west to the east, or something is happening in Europe? I'm not sure about that. What is your understanding of that?
Well, it's okay. There are two vectors. Let's say there is a vector that is going Brexit style. That will be Hungary, Slovakia, a few others. But there's also a vector that is trying to transfer power within the EU especially towards the annexes comprising Poland, very complicated story because they have an inferiority complex, a tremendous inferiority complex, and at the same time, arrogance. They still believe that they are in their own empire in the 17th century. And the Baltic Chihuahuas. The original plan for the new NATO before the SMO, and even assuming that they would be able to destroy the Russian economy in 6 months, which was their original plan, is that the new NATO would be basically guided by the axis London, Warsaw, Baltic Chihuahuas, and Kiev. So obviously this plan completely collapsed. So they are trying to get Romania into this bunch. And at the same time, we have the anti-Brussels group, which can become much, much stronger. And we have the disintegration of the three most important members, Germany, France, and Italy. Italy, once again, will depend on the Italians getting their act together, progressive Italians. It's a long shot. France, the country is totally broken. Le Petit Roi, the actual popularity rate is even less than 10%. It's probably around 5%, if it gets to 5%. Everybody hates the motherfucker, but they cannot get rid of him because an impeachment process in France is totally impossible because the system blocks it. And taxes are going off the roof. People are desperate because they cannot pay their bills anymore. Even middle-class French men and women cannot pay their bills anymore. Everybody knows that this went totally downhill with Le Petit Roi.